I wasn't expecting much from this trip. After months of late nights at work and a phone screen that never stopped buzzing, I needed to get away. Somewhere isolated, no Wi-Fi, no texts, no distractions. Just me and nature. So I found a little spot deep in the woods, a small clearing by a lake that was so remote I was fairly certain I wouldn't run into another soul. It was perfect, just what I needed. I arrived late in the afternoon, just as the sun began its slow descent behind the trees. The air was crisp, a faint breeze whispering through the towering pines, and the forest smelled like earth and pine needles. It was peaceful, the kind of quiet I hadn't realized I was missing until now. I set up camp, pitched the tent, and lit a fire, the crackling flames illuminating the small clearing with a warm glow. The forest around me was dark, but in the firelight, it felt safe. I settled down on a log, my back to the fire, letting the warmth seep into my bones as I enjoyed a quiet dinner. It was just me, the fire, and the soft murmurs of the wind. The world felt simple again. As the night deepened, the temperature dropped. I pulled my jacket tighter, trying to ignore the increasing chill. The forest was alive with sounds, the occasional rustle of leaves, the call of an owl in the distance, the creaking of trees swaying in the breeze. But it wasn't anything unusual. I've camped before, and the woods always have their own noises. But as I sat there, staring into the flickering flames, something started to feel off. It wasn't a loud sound, but a subtle shift, a change in the air that I couldn't place. I shook it off. I'd been alone for a while now, and my mind was starting to play tricks on me. Then I heard it. A faint footstep. Barely audible, but it cut through the otherwise still night. My heart skipped, and I stiffened, my head snapping to the side. I listened closely. The fire crackled loudly, its sound almost too harsh compared to the stillness of the rest of the forest. Nothing. I was being paranoid. It was probably just a deer or some other animal, right? I tried to focus on the fire again, but the sensation didn't leave me. Something was there, watching me. Another footstep, closer this time. My pulse quickened. The footsteps were slow, deliberate, not like the hurried scramble of an animal, but steady, almost measured. It sounded like someone walking toward me, carefully, with purpose. I turned my head sharply, my eyes scanning the darkness beyond the firelight, but I saw nothing, just the towering shadows of trees stretching into the night. "Hello?" I called out, my voice barely above a whisper, as if I was afraid to disturb the stillness. There was no answer, only silence. I shook my head to myself. "It's nothing. You're just hearing things. Get a grip." But then I heard it again. Footsteps. But this time they were closer and louder. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat as the sound came from my right, just beyond the light of the fire. I slowly turned my head, the beam of my flashlight shaking in my hand. The beam cut through the trees, illuminating nothing but darkness. I stood up, my legs slightly trembling as I glanced around. The night was eerily quiet now, as if the forest had collectively held its breath. "Who's there?" I called, my voice carrying across the still air. But even as the words left my mouth, I knew I'd made a mistake. There was no answer, no movement, only that suffocating silence. I took a few hesitant steps toward the edge of the clearing, the gravel crunching under my boots. My eyes scanned the darkness. Nothing, just trees. Dark shadows that didn't move. But the footsteps, they kept coming, closer. I felt a chill creep down my spine as I slowly turned around to face the fire again, unsure of what to do. The flames danced wildly in the wind, casting long, twisting shadows, but there was no sign of life beyond the firelight. And yet, the footsteps continued, like someone walking in perfect rhythm with my own breaths. My breath caught in my chest. What if someone was out there? I swallowed hard and took another step backward, toward the tent. My feet moving instinctively, but my body was frozen. The hairs on the back of my neck stood straight. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being followed, that something, or someone, was just out of sight, watching me. The footsteps stopped. For a moment, I thought I'd imagined it all, but then I heard a rustling sound behind me. My head whipped around. A shadow darted across the edge of the clearing. My heart hammered in my chest. I grabbed my flashlight, shining it desperately in every direction, but the beam only seemed to illuminate more shadows, more trees. The figure, if it was one, was gone. I was alone, or at least I thought I was. I couldn't stay here. I had to leave. I had to get out. I grabbed my things quickly, trying to stay as quiet as possible, but my movements felt clumsy, frantic. I zipped the tent shut with shaking hands and grabbed my pack. Then, footsteps again. This time, they were right behind me. I spun around, flashlight in hand, but there was nothing, just the oppressive darkness. I felt my throat close up. My head swam with panic. I ran. I didn't care anymore. My instincts kicked in. I bolted from the campsite, weaving through the trees, my feet slapping against the ground in a rhythm of terror. The woods seemed to close in on me with every step, the darkness swallowing the light from my flashlight. But every time I turned to look behind me, I couldn't see anything, just shadows. But I could hear it, the footsteps, following me, matching my pace. I ran faster, my breath ragged and desperate, pushing my body until my legs felt like they might give out. The sound of the footsteps grew louder, more insistent, closer, until I stumbled and collapsed into the underbrush. And then, nothing. The footsteps stopped. I stayed there on the forest floor, my chest heaving with exhaustion and fear. The silence that followed was suffocating, almost unnatural. The forest, which had been so alive earlier, was now completely still. It felt like the woods themselves were holding their breath, waiting for something. I slowly stood, my body aching from the sprint, and looked around. My flashlight had fallen beside me. I reached for it, my fingers trembling, and turned it on. The beam cut through the trees, but there was nothing. No figure, no sound. I wasn't sure how long I stood there, staring into the forest, trying to convince myself that it was all in my head. But even as the night pressed in around me, the feeling of being watched never left. I had to leave. I had to get back to my car. I made my way back, still on edge, every snap of a twig making me jump. My legs were sore, but I didn't stop until I reached the edge of the woods. As I reached the clearing, I glanced back once more at the dark trees. And there, just beyond the line of firelight, I saw it, a shadow, standing perfectly still, its shape barely visible against the dark backdrop of the woods. The same shadow that had been following me all night. It didn't move, but I knew it was watching me. I left the forest that night, not looking back. I didn't even stop to pack up my camp, and as I drove away, my hands gripped the wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The one thing I couldn't shake? The sound of footsteps, faint but still unmistakable. The feeling of being followed, even as I drove away.